Next up, we've got Brendan Kelly from IBM. He's the subject matter expert for everything Tririga related. And he'll be going through with you all how Tririga will get integrated into Maximo Application Suite and become what we now know as real estate and facilities. So welcome, Brendan Kelly.
Thank you, thanks for that. So, welcome everyone. I'm going to attempt to demystify what Maximo Real Estate and Facilities actually is. We can skip past that slide because you probably don't want to see that. This will be my agenda. I'm going to try and split maybe half and half between what actually does Maximo and Real Estate Facilities do. So can I get a show of hands in the room? How many people before coming to this conference had never heard of Tririga before? Okay. So I don't need to go into too much depth about what Tririga is. I want to be, because there's not so many people in the room, I want to be as interactive as possible. So if you want to ask me a question, feel free to raise your hand and we'll get a microphone across to you. Okay, so instead of some stock real estate image, I wanted to include, and you may have note that the image here is from Adriana's introductory keynote this morning. But there's probably 10 or 12 individual things within this theatre that are getting managed with Tririga today, Tririga SaaS today. So my role in IBM is Tririga SaaS today, and I've been leading the effort to move to plan for and then move our Tririga SaaS customers across to MREF, which is basically just a tenant application that runs in MAS. So in IBM, in SaaS, we'll be delivering all of that functionality that Tririga SaaS delivers today that will be deployed within our MAS SaaS framework. What else? So, apologies for the eye chart. If you know anything at all about my presentations, you'll know that this is probably one of the easier to read slides. Because, yeah, it gets a bit more complex from here. So, basically, Tririga traditionally was always split up into a platform and an application. The platform is all of the Java code, and it is a fixed WAR file. It is deployed on top of, today in Tririga, deployed on top of WebSphere, usually Liberty. But when we move into a containerized environment, it's going to be deployed in a Liberty image, so in a container, a Liberty container, running an OpenShift. So most of this this block diagram, which I wrote maybe 3 or 4 years ago, this is going to be very similar in terms of what we're going to deliver within the product. Okay, so we're still running the platform. It will be running in a container, in a Liberty container. We still have all of the core components in MREF that we had in Tririga before, so all the people and the places and the things, in queries, BERT reports for more complex reporting. That's still all part of the core of the application. And then On top of that, we have the application itself. So real estate management, which is basically lease accounting. So traditionally, we've had very good support for leasee, perhaps less good support for leaseor, but that's improved in later versions of the application from 11.5 up. We've got pretty good lessor capabilities. It is a very dry topic, so I'm not going to cover too much more about it, but if you need more detail on lease accounting, then please let me or Dave Small know about that. I will be covering reservations and space management in another slide, so I won't cover that now, but ops and maintenance. This is a part of the application, and you would have heard in the Melbourne Health presentations, it's used quite extensively. It is an application that has quite a lot of parallels within Manage today. So it is pretty much functionally stabilized as at the capabilities in 11.6, which is the latest version of the application. And we will be looking to deploy new capabilities within Manage rather than within MREF. And the same sort of thing applies to the real estate and sustainability module, what we call, affectionately called trees. So this is where we delivered our ESG reporting previous to the Envisi acquisition. And so now a lot of that capability will be delivered by Envisi instead. And Envisi is consumable via app points anyway. I will talk a little bit about capital projects, which is one of those capabilities that a lot of Maximo customers have been asking about. And then I'm also going to talk a little bit about the capabilities within the platform to deliver custom applications without actually having to write any code. Some of the add-ons, so you've already heard about how Melbourne Health is planning to do facility condition assessment. There is a reporting add-on called Curve from one of our business partners. That is still only beta in MREF, so we can't sell that, but we know that it is working at the moment and is coming soon. All of the integrations on this side, they're all still there. Okay, so you can do all the same integrations. The only thing we're not delivering in MREF that we do deliver today in Tririga is the SMTP-based listener. So in that we're replacing with the Graph API. And I did say that this was going to be the functional part, so let's move on. Space management. Okay, so this is where the product allows you to manage your spaces. So if you've got accounting for individual spaces at a department level, and this is where you track that, it's all very floor plan centric. And one of the new things is that we're now allowing customers to upload their CAD drawings for floor plans directly via the browser. So previously we would have used the CAD integrator plugin, and that obviously that came with the impost of having to have AutoCAD installed on your workstation, and so you would use up that license, and those are usually fairly expensive. But now if you've got a drawing already, you can upload it in the browser, and you can assign spaces that way. So that's one of the nice new things in the product. That said, though, we've still got the CAD integrator, the CAD integrator plugin for both Autodesk and and Bentley MicroStation for floor plans, and this is still something that's going to be required for those more complex operations to integrate, to keep your drawings in sync with the data in Tririga in MREF now. And there's also BIM, a BIM integrator as well, and that gives you the capability of uploading BIM models, so 3D BIM models, and includes visualization of that model directly from within the MREF application, along with all of the other data that comes with it. And this is also one of the things that's useful in capital planning. If you're getting a BIM model with your build, then you can upload it directly into the application. So, Reservation Manager. So, as you can see, if you can actually read it, I'm based on the Gold Coast, and I thought I'd just take a couple of screenshots of how we use Reservation Manager today in IBM. Basically allows you to book spaces at a site, whether it's a meeting room or conference room facility or a hot desk. You can go and book a space using this capability. You can, usually we use Outlook. You can go directly from Outlook. You can go to, there's a UX application as well, but typically what you'll do is you'll go and do a add location, or if you already know what the room is, and you have to know the room name for that to work, or you can go to room search and find the room that you want to book, okay? And that will give you a filtered list based on your current location. If you've got location services enabled, then that's going to know where you are. Otherwise, you can tell it the site that you want to search for that space in. One of the other nice things is you can also do it by floor plan. So you can see on this diagram here, you've got those spaces marked in green that are available at the time that you've selected to book your meeting. And you can go and select that room based on a visual representation. And this is just the same drawing that we would use in space management, but it's being again used in the Reservation Manager application. And you can filter based on other, and book spaces based on other characteristics of the room, whether it's got a certain screen, whether it's going to be catered, all those sorts of things can be included in the application, in the booking. So, capital planning. Another eye chart, sorry. So this is a capability within MREF to allow you to plan either a green fields or a brown fields build projects all the way from the setup. So you can start with funding sources. So where's all my build funds going to come from for this capital project? Then you go through a budgeting process, and you can then track that budget throughout the entire life of the build. You can include things like design management. So if you're using a BIM model, you can pull that BIM model in and use it as part of the design for the capital planning project. And then you can also manage your cost, your risk, all of your approvals, all of your permits, and then manage your tasks for all your subcontractors as well through to the close of the project. And so when that project closes, all of those assets that you've built, they make their way into the Tririga database as part of your ongoing management and maintenance of that facility as an integrated workflow. I mentioned UX. So in Tririga, traditionally, we didn't have a native mobile application. We have typically not the requirement from our customers for that sort of offline capability traditionally. So we've delivered what we call UX or Perceptive apps. So UX just stands for user experience. Perceptive because the application understands the screen real estate that it's running on and will adapt itself accordingly. So just a few examples of Perceptive apps, and there are a lot, and you heard from Melbourne Health the applications that they're developing. It's quite, I wouldn't say simple, but it's fairly, the process is fairly straightforward for developing these applications. Is just you can just use the ones that are there for as a basis. They're just HTML5 applications delivered on a browser. There are, so for example, for work task, which I don't think I included there are offline capabilities, which is just in your HTML session store. And then for assets, there is barcode, so you can look up an asset if you're working on a particular asset. If you want to report an issue with a particular asset, you've got barcode, QR code reading capability built in as well. So it is talking to the device at a certain level. It's not quite the same way as a native mobile application. And then, you can see floor plans and actually 3D models as well. I just don't have a demo of that one. So workplace analytics. So this is our new-ish replacement for what we had previously called Tririga Building Insights. So this is available in TAS. I'll talk a little bit more about TAS in a minute, but Tririga Application Suite 11.6 and MREF 9.1. It allows, in conjunction with MAS Monitor, it allows us to deliver a number of different dashboards. In this one, we're just showing a heat map of the under or over-utilisation of a particular floor plan based on integrations with, say, things like Cisco Wi-Fi devices or your building management system, all of the things that MAS Monitor integrates with, we can include and report on in a workplace analytics screen. Another nice thing coming, or that is not in traditional Tririga, that is in TAS and MREF, is the indoor maps. So in conjunction with an integration with Esri, we can deliver indoor navigation. So this is like a wayfinding service within a building, on a floor plan, from a kiosk, or on your mobile device. And then it also allows for the blue dot, follow the blue dot type user experience as well for dynamic indoor wayfinding with the right integrations. So with the Esri location service and with the device integrations to track your location, you can have a Google Maps-like experience to navigate through a facility to the right place where maybe you haven't been before. I said I was going to talk a little bit about customization. So for Maximo people, customization's a little bit of a dirty word because it does affect the way that upgrades can be run and the expense and time and effort it takes to do an upgrade. Whereas in Tririga and in MREF, there is no Java class customization. There is no code. So all of the customization, all of the custom apps that you want to deploy and deliver and create are via no-code GUI-based design methodologies. So there's the data modeler, which gives you access to create business objects, which roughly correlate with tables in the database. And then you have fields, which is each column, and then you have each record, which you can make associations between one record and another. And one of the more important things in a business object is the state family, which defines the states that record can go through as part of your business process, from, say, draft to approved to delivered or in progress or whatever. And then there's the UI as well. So we've got forms, we've got navigation items, portals, so you build all your UI up using a graphical form-based interface. And the thing about Tririga and the thing that continues in MREF is that this is exactly how all of the applications that we deliver in the product, all of the out-of-the-box applications, they're all delivered and created in the same way. So you can take those and you can look at them. Don't recommend changing them unless you know what you're doing, because any change that you make will be overwritten by the next upgrade. But if you're creating new stuff, it's just getting stored in the database, and you're not going to, your next application upgrade is not going to impact that, and it'll continue to work as it worked previously. So upgrades in general are a lot easier than you would think with traditional Maximo customizations. So custom logic is all delivered via the workflow engine. So this is a GUI, and again, a GUI interface to create a workflow, drag and drop. Basically, you drag the items that you want from the palette onto the workspace, and then you go and create your business logic, which can include iterative loops, decision trees, all of those things you'd expect to have to write code to do. You can do with the workflow engine. And then there's also formulas, which are it's just math, basically. So that is the I guess, functional side. Since I'm a technical guy, let's get on to the technical stuff. So this is the traditional way we would have implemented Tririga, and it's basically the same as we would have implemented Maximo traditionally, right? 3-tier or N-tier based architecture. But nowadays, we're looking more at a diagram that looks something like this. So what we've got in OpenShift, so again, this is a diagram that I drew for a previous presentation on Tririga Application Suite, but it's very, very similar what we're doing in MAS. We've taken a lot of the same concepts and container builds and all of that stuff that we previously used in our TAS builds, and we've translated them into being a good MAS tenant. So we're a tenant application of MAS, and some things change, like the way the operator does some of its things, but some things remain quite similar in terms of the way we deploy pods for each of the traditional Tririga application server side or process server side. One of the differences between TAS and MREF is that the pod architecture is a little bit more flexible in that we now allow a deployment that has only a single agent running in each pod. So you've got your UI, which is where all your users log into, your application server, we would call it traditionally in Tririga speak. And so that funnels all of the user-centric work. And that is now able to be scaled horizontally as well as vertically. So you can increase the replicas of the app server pods, and then your process server pods can either be a single pod with all of your agents running in them, or entirely separate pods, one for each agent. So I stole this slide this diagram from the MAS SaaS documentation. So this is how we deliver MAS SaaS today. It looks a bit simpler because I've obfuscated all of the complicated stuff from the previous slide, but it contains all of the same sort of stuff. So in MREF, in MAS, we're using the MAS app points to deliver, or we consume MAS app points for each of the functions for each of the applications. So if you go and deploy Assist or MVI or those other MAS applications, then they consume app points, and it's the same exact methodology for facilities. So it appears as a tile, as you would have seen from Kendra's presentation, and you can just click on the tile to access the facilities application. So and it'll show up as real estate and facilities. So in MAS SaaS, we deliver on AWS. I don't think it's any big secret. So you can see we're using all the different types of storage that AWS offers. We need file storage for read-write-many. We need object storage for various things, and which I'm going to talk a little bit more about later. And then we need block storage for good, fast database backend. So in SaaS, we're deploying DB2 inside the cluster, but that's just a choice that we've made. MAS does not require that. You can deploy your application with a database either in or external to the cluster, and we still support the same databases that we've always supported, Oracle, SQL Server, and DB2. So the thing about deploying DB2 in a cluster, or any sort of database in a cluster, is you need to get the back-end storage architecture right. So a database and Tririga is a database, and MREF's a database that needs pretty fast back-end storage. So we've chosen to deploy on block storage there, and it's GP3 block storage is the one we use in AWS. But if you choose to deploy in Azure or in IBM Cloud, then those same sort of design capabilities apply as well. Okay, so I wanted to also mention Tririga Application Suite. As far as I understand, it is still available for purchase at the moment. It is going, just like Tririga traditional, it is going into support. I think our announced date is the end of September 2027. So while you can still buy it, it will be end of support in a couple of years' time. Some of the things that are, like I said, the same. All of the functional capabilities that we had in Tririga, they're coming across, and there's a few more capabilities that we have in TAS that will also be in MREF that are staying the same as well. We have an app point licensing model, of course. Tririga Application Suite had their own app points, TAS app points, but now we're switching to use MAS app points. So when we deploy in a cluster, you want to be deploying your MREF application pointing at the same suite licensing service that you use for your manage application or your MVI or whatever the other applications in your suite is, right? It's the same instance. Should be pointing at the same pool of app points. So you can then use excess points that are in that pool to deploy whichever application you want to deploy. Not going to go through everything on the slide, so you guys will get access to these to download these. It's just some considerations for a lift and shift style migration from a current Tririga database to MREF. So for lift and shift, we can do, if it's the same database architecture, we can do a database backup and restore. If you're coming from a different database architecture, so Oracle to DB2, for instance, then you're going to do a DB export import rather than a backup restore. And for the if you're using the backup restore methodology, then your schema name and your username need to match between your source and your target database. The AES key store is an important thing to get from your source system to bring across to your target as well, because that's otherwise you're not going to get access to any of the secret data that was in there, like encrypted, reversibly encrypted passwords, etc. One of the things you're going to want to do is plan where your database is going to live. So if you're going to put your database in the cluster or you're going to put it outside the cluster. You also need to make sure you're up on 11.5 of the application, 4.5 of the platform. Those are the minimum levels. Of course, you can be higher than that, but those are the minimum levels before you'll be able to successfully migrate a database across from Tririga to MREF. If you're not already if you've not already got MAS implemented, then you're going to need to go and get your app point license file. You're going to need a registry entitlement key, so those sorts of things that MAS you already would have if you've implemented MAS. You'll need to get if you're implementing from scratch. The other thing, so the user migration tool. So this is a new tool that we released, I think, about 2 weeks ago. It's available from Fix Central. It's deployable as an object migration package within MREF, and it allows us to take all of the users that were previously defined in the Tririga database and automatically import those users into MAS Core. So MAS Core, of course, with any MAS tenant application, MAS Core is the thing that does all of the user authentication for you. So you need to have all of your users defined in MAS Core. And so this is a tool that allows us to automatically take those users and bring them into the MAS Core part of the suite. So I just included a couple of slides of when I was testing the tool, a couple of screenshots, sorry. So Facilities admin is just like Max admin in your MAS manage implementation. It allows us admin access to the newly deployed application. Basically, we're going to go and select the users and their target licenses. So when the tool first comes into the system, so during the import process, it's going to run through all of the users that are defined in your system, and it is going to go and assign a target license to that user based on the licenses that they've got assigned in the database already. Okay, so that will algorithmically assign a license, but then you've got the chance to go and change that. You can choose to import users in batches, and then if you select a batch of users that have all got the same license, you can go and change that license, okay, to one that you'd prefer. And the licenses in MAS, like the base, limited, premium, those are the licenses, so it's a lot less granular than it has previously been. So there will, of course, be some changes that will need to be made there. And of course, it's not going to bring in your password. Passwords in the database are one-way encrypted. They're hashed. They're not even encrypted. They're hashed. So those passwords cannot be brought in. So the methodology is either you go and define a single sign-on that you've already used, so you have to re-implement single sign-on pointing at MAS core, or you can use those users who are going to log in first thing after the migration, can use the forgot password link, and they'll get, as long as they've got an email address that works, then they'll be able to go through that process and get a password reset done. So they'll get a one-time password. They'll have to log in with that password within a certain length of time, and then you can go and update they can go and set a new password as a local user. So MAS SaaS. So because I'm a MAS SaaS guy, or a SaaS guy at least, I just wanted to include a slide that covered the sort of things that we do in SaaS, in case you don't want to go through all of the pain of implementing OpenShift for yourself, if you haven't done that already. These are the things that we cover, a subset of the things that we cover when you purchase MAS SaaS. So MAS SaaS has its own app points. You buy app points that cover all of the software costs as well as all of the infrastructure costs, infrastructure and labor, and looking after the environment, so upgrades, all of the security and compliance, patch fixes, all of that stuff is included in our SaaS offering. So part of the sales pitch, I guess. This is a MAS SaaS on Rosa implementation. So we deploy, as I said, in AWS, but what I didn't say is we're using the AWS managed service that Red Hat maintain for us. So some of the things that we have to consider are, because it's an internet-facing application, you're going to want to have a web application firewall. So we use IBM CIS for that, for DDoS prevention, and for a web application firewall. And then part of the planning for deploying any sort of OpenShift cluster is you're going to want to decide if it's internet facing, probably going to want to have a private networking rather than public. So you're going to need to define the VPC layout, the transit gateways between the VPCs in your hyperscaler of choice. So of course you don't need to deploy in AWS. You can use Arrow from Azure. You can use ROCs from IBM. So those are you've got a number of, if you want to go with a managed OpenShift offering, you've got a number of choices there. And I'm running out of time, so let me just skip forward to performance. So this sort of slide I try and include in most of my presentations to encourage people to look at the network layer first when they're looking at performance. This is pretty essential because a lot of databases today have network-based back-end storage, and that needs to be fast for Tririga to work properly. And here's some other hints and tips, stuff that we do in SaaS that may be of benefit to you guys. So my roadmap items, we are bringing in support for S3 for file-based integrations. Currently not in the product, but should be before the end of the year, so that we can still do file-based integrations that don't require direct access to the pod file system. And then also we need to add support for long-running queries. I want to also get things like native file-based integration encryption included, because there's things that we can't do anymore because it's a containerized application that we used to be able to do in a proper operating system that includes all of the operating system capabilities that we now need to be built into the product. One of the big things is also native object support for documents. Tririga stores all of its documents in the database. This used to be good when documents were smaller, but now we've got customers with terabytes of documents in the database, and that is problematic. So we want that all to be moved out to object storage. And demo data. So one of the things that our Maximo customers are asking for is demo data so that they can see what the application is actually capable of before they go ahead and implement in it. That is not currently in the MREF product that we need to look at putting in there. Okay, Q&A. Any questions from the floor? Except for Smalley.
Hey, Dave.
So thanks, Brendan, as usual, very comprehensive. So just a question, we've got customers out here who are in different stages of their MAS implementation. So if somebody's got 9.1 running in a non-prod environment, when they select the catalogue, they can just turn MREF on and play till their heart's content. That is a correct statement?
If they have enough app points to do so.
Yep.
Then yes.
And if we've done our job, we will have made sure they've got an excess number of app points to use. So
Correct.
they'll have no trouble with MREF.
Yep, correct. All right.
Got a question? We've got one more question here, Brendan.
Hey, Brendan.
Tony.
With the facilities user, facilities admin to add users, so you did mention that you have implement SSO so that they can actually log in from that one, and you did mention that if you were to not have SSO, they need to have an email address. Is that right?
Yeah, email address is probably assumed to be there for all users in the database.
So with generic users?
It's probably not a good assumption, but it's an assumption that they made when they were building their tool for users who don't have, and that assumption came out of some ideas pre-release for MAS Core, where MAS Core was going to make email address mandatory for new users in the system. but they didn't end up doing that. So we can actually define users in MazCore with no email address at all. For those users that we're going to migrate from the database, those users that do not have an email address will probably need to be handled another way. I am currently talking to the guys who built the tool to see if we can handle those users like generics that potentially don't have an email address. But right now, you can't use the tool for those users. You can define them manually, you just can't use the tool to migrate them automatically from Tririga DB into your MazCore.
So if you define them, again, not through the database, as in like not migrated through database.
Yeah, you define them in MazCore using...
You define a password for them?
Yep.
Okay.
A new password, because it's not going to even look at the one that's in the database.
Okay. Sorry, I've got one more. One more.
Hi, Brendan.
Leela?
So I missed that bit when you said curve reporting available with MREF application. Do we have access to curve reporting?
So Curve is still in beta at the moment with MREF. We kind of expect it to be them to be done and have a release version by the end of the year. But we don't actually right now have a product that we can that does the same thing that Curve does in MREF today.
Okay, thank you.
It works. It just needs to be productionized.
One more here.
Hey, Brendan.
Hey.
Thanks for your presentation.
No problem.
Jason from Cisco. We're running Tririga Platform 5 version and Platform version 5 and application 10.8. Do we have to migrate that application up to 11.5 before we can move to Mass?
Unfortunately, yes.
Right.
You do. You have to be at least on 11.5.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, that is a requirement.
Okay. And just a question regarding performance of our current environment compared to moving to, Mass and AWS, I guess. A couple of our largest reports with 130, 140,000 records take a few minutes to load in our current platform.
Yep.
Is that likely to be much faster in AWS, or what are your thoughts here in terms of performance improvements between those two environments?
Not faster, I don't think. But we're endeavouring to make it the same or equivalent performance to what you've already got now. So is it a BERT report?
We've set them up in Curve as well as...
Oh, Curve,
We've had to run those two in...
Yep.
We do all of our reports in Curve except for those two. We're delivering to the business in just a Tririga format because they perform quicker.
Okay.
So I was just, curious.
Yeah, it's those sorts of performance issues are more around the speed of the back-end storage to the database than anything else, because we're going to have plenty of resource in the pod, the application pod level in SaaS. So we just need to make sure we size the back-end storage correctly. So in AWS, you've got GP3 default, which we'll be using for small databases. For medium size, medium and large, we're going to be using GP3, top level GP3, which gives you, I think, 1,000 megabits, so about a terabit of throughput. But then there's also, you can go up to the next level and go to IO2 Block Express, which is another block-based storage offering, and that one gives us much lower latency and much more throughput options. So that will enable us to deliver at least the same speeds that we're seeing today with bare metal deployments.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, thanks. I had one other question too, if that's all right. Is your points licensing structure the only option in MAS, or do you offer something similar to the existing, you know, like outright licensing that's available to us today in Tririga?
At points is it.
At points is it, right? Okay.
Dave will sort you out there, but at points is how we license MAS, whether it's MAS SaaS or whether it's MAS customer managed. At points is how we do it. That's the only option.
Yeah, right. Okay.
As far as I'm aware.
Okay. I've got one more if
Fire away.
wants to.
I'm here all day.
I'm just curious about your Revit plugin.
Yep.
You know, area is a critical data point for us in the portfolio management team. We have a lot of our portfolio in 2D drawings, but we're getting more and more Revit models coming into the system. My understanding was you had to kind of set something up like an area mapping or something, you know, to get consistent sort of area numbers out of the Revit models compared to your 2D models. Is that still the case, or like do you have clients that are running kind of a mixture of both? Or
We do, but there is some setup to do. I don't remember off the top of my head all of the setup that needs to be done there though, but I can put you in touch with people like Sam O'Neill and Andy Barnes who know that level of detail.
okay, so a little bit of an initial configuration.
There will be some initial configuration, yeah.
And once you've done that, then you'll get a.
Then you're right, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
Oh, good. Doesn't look like there's any other question. Then thanks, Brendan Kelly.
Okay. No problem.